he said, you brought so much humanity to this character. He's like, there's going to be people who are going to be thinking about you for roles, and you don't even know it. You just keep working the way that you're working, and people are going to find you. Don't get bogged down by the bullshit in the hustle. Like, just do the work.
Welcome to QUIERO, a show about Latinx who want it all. I'm your host, Priscilla Garcia-Jacquet. Today's guest is Raúl Castillo. Raúl is a film and television actor who has starred in shows such as Looking, Atypical, and now 7 Seconds on Netflix. He premiered at Sundance this year as the leading man in We the Animals. I guess, I related to the story of being an immigrant, and I knew I was Colombian, and that was my badge. Did you know that, like, you were moving forward as a Latino actor and that this was what was happening?
I mean, my journey to acting was so trepidatious always. Like, I never thought that I could be an actor, but I never stopped doing it because I loved it so much. Especially because I grew up in an environment where most people looked and sounded like me. And then moving to a place like Boston, where that wasn't the case. And I was sort of very acutely aware of what it was going to be to be a brown man going through the journey of trying to make it in this industry. With a name like Raúl Castillo. You know, my brother's name is Tony. Antonio. You can. My sister's name is Consuelo. You can Connie. You can't do anything with Raúl.
Is Raúl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you grew up in Texas.
Yeah.
In a very Mexican town with immigrant parents. You're first generation.
That's right.
Yeah. Why did your parents move here?
I think they wanted to raise us in the United States. The town that we're from in Mexico is 10 minutes from where I grew up in Texas. Yeah, and they wanted to give us the benefit of citizenship. So we were really lucky in that respect that they had that forethought. Did
you feel supported in your decision to, like, go into the arts? And was that ever a conversation?
Yeah. They always supported me. I mean, I think they were baffled by the decision and didn't really know what to make of it. But I think that if I hadn't found theater, I would have been sort of a lost cause, and they recognized that, and so they recognized that the theater and that acting and that this pursuit was the one thing that made me work harder and better and reach higher in life.
It gave you purpose. Like, theater gave you purpose.
Absolutely. And I knew it was sort of my ticket out of, I really wanted to move out. I wanted to see the world, and I thought that this was...
So you were aware, like, there is more than this in the media environment at the moment.
For sure.
That was, like, an important hunch in your life. And then you find yourself at BU for writing. What got you there?
Well, when I was in high school, I didn't think that I could be an actor.
Why?
I thought that actors... Well, I wasn't particularly handsome at the time, and
you've just become handsome.
and I mumbled a lot. Like, I had terrible diction. And I thought that actors were people that, they had that kind of polish. And I was very rough around the edges in a lot of ways. And then I discovered Miguel Piñero when I was in high school. I found an old weathered copy of a New York Poets Cafe anthology of poetry. And I was really drawn to Piñero's work. And then I started discovering Latino writers, and I thought that maybe I could write. That maybe my purpose was to write. And
so you're at BU, you're writing a lot. And eventually you make the move to New York. And you talk about that being the most important kind of event for your career that you could have made.
Yeah, I was living in Austin a couple of years after BU because I didn't know what to do with myself. I was a little disillusioned, to be quite honest with. And I just thought, like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to, pursue a life in the arts if it's just gonna be such an uphill battle for a person of color in this industry?
But did you feel that even then?
Yeah.
It was like because of your.
Oh yeah. I wasn't completely seen as a human being, and I wasn't taken very seriously. And I thought that that's what it was. always gonna, be like. And so I went to Austin. I had a bunch of friends from the Rio Grande Valley that moved to Austin. And that's when I sort of discovered film. I did my first short film there. I came to the New York Latino Film Festival that summer with this particular short film. And I remember coming back to the East Coast and being enamored by New York. And Austin was quickly getting to become too small.
Something that I'm really keen about is like I was very fortunate to graduate into a network. Like that just kind of comes in when you from one of these big schools. But not everyone has that, and I think a really big goal for me for the show is to teach people how to build a network, and so that they don't feel completely paralyzed in the creation of their careers. What did that look like? Like how was your network building? Like what were the steps you took?
I've always sort of resented the word network because if you could feel it when people are networking. Yeah. Someone said to me when I was very young that in life you had to have your mafia.
Yes.
Right? Which I thought which is your friends, right? And I always thought that was really great advice. Like your friends are your mafia, and you go through, and you build alongside your friends. So but it's always been little steps. Before moving to New York, I had a buddy of mine who I wanted to be with who called me up. He was living in New York, and he said, "What was that one act that you did when we were in college?" It was one act that I had written. And he said, "I'm working as a carpenter at the Cherry Lane, and they're doing this one act festival. I want to submit it." And so I sent him the one act, a hard copy of it, and he walked it in, and then I get a call from someone at the Cherry Lane, and they ended up doing it, and they were like, "Who do you want to direct it?" I was like, "I don't know anyone in New York. I don't know anyone." So they found someone to direct it. When I moved to New York, I called that director up, and he was working at Intar. And he said, "Oh, why don't you submit a play? We already chose our plays that we're producing in this New Works Festival, but we're doing a reading series." Great, and I had started writing again, so I submitted this play that I was working on, and they put a table read together. My now dear friend Felix Solis, and he ended up directing that reading of that play that I did.
Amazing.
And he sort of took me under his wing, and he started bringing me around Labyrinth, and I just stuck around. And
Labyrinth has changed people's lives,
absolutely.
And will continue to do that as a network.
Absolutely.
Network. Family.
Yeah. But it's little things like that,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And you never, and that's why you can't. That's why it's like, number one advice is like, just don't be a dick. It's like you think like you're just gonna meet. It's a small world, and you're gonna meet so many people along the way.
Okay, when I met you, you were relentless about just making sure you were always involved in the theater or doing something to do with theater. Like that was, you moved to New York and you're like, I need to not be, I'm not like, I don't want to be a waiter, right? Like I don't want to like get caught up in like just making hundreds of dollars a night, not doing the thing that I want to do. And what did the hustle look like? Yeah,
that was always important. I saw friends that I went to, I didn't study acting, but I went to a conservatory, and I saw a lot of my friends who studied acting and were trying their go at it and sort of valued their creature comforts over the hustle. And I kind of always, I think, valued the hustle over I would rather be uncomfortable and have, 5 roommates but be able to make that audition or those rehearsals for that off Broadway play. That's that I get to work with this playwright, or whatever. To me, it was always important that I sort of was living creatively. And a friend of mine came to see a playwright friend of mine. He said, "You brought so much humanity to this character." He said, "There's going to be people who are going to be thinking about you for roles, and you don't even know it. You just keep working the way that you're working, and people are going to find you." And I've heard that a lot of times by people who have said, don't get bogged down by the bullshit in the hustle. Like, just do the work. And that's been the best advice. And it's hard. It's hard advice to take when you're desperate for work, or when you're like trying to hustle, and when you're out there and when you're starting and when no one knows you. And
was there a moment when you were like, I'm acting now? Like, I'm acting now. This is what I'm doing. This is where I am.
I think it happened this week or something.
You're like right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of true though. I don't take it for granted. I mean, like, you know, I always feel like they're gonna pull,
Sure.
you know, the rug from under me. So yeah.
I'm learning that like life is that. That life is like, I think that I kept expecting maybe as I was growing older that I would stop feeling that. I would stop feeling like the other shoe's gonna drop or afraid. And the more I talk to people, the more I kind of learn and grow up, the more I'm like, no. You always feel that. You always feel panicked or afraid or like, you know, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, nervous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Never stops.
So you're in New York and you're acting for a while. You kind of you make your statement in the theater. You become this theater actor. And then Looking happens. And that kind of opens up your whole world.
Yeah, I was a little spoiled in that the thing that introduced me to the industry in a big way was a show that I got to work on with people that I care a lot about, telling a story that I cared a lot about, like through the lens of a character that a lot of people cared a lot about, you know. I feel very lucky in that way because not every actor gets that kind of opportunity, and certainly not every Latino actor gets that kind of opportunity. The sort of neat thing about the character was that it was a romantic lead in essence, and how few opportunities people of color get to play romantic leads. So I had this incredible blessing that showed up in the form of a guest star, possible recurring, which is what the role was in the pilot. So they could have done anything. They could have written me off in 3 episodes. It could have been anything. But
the freckles really got them. It was the freckles. We want those.
It was something. And a lot of people have paved the way for me to get there. You know, I got a couple of years ago, I got the Lupe Award from NALI, from the National Association of Latino Independent Producers, and it was named after Lupe Ontiveros, a wonderful actress who sort of created so many characters that I grew up on. You know, that a lot of us grew up on, and I recognize that the way has been paved for me by a lot of, you know, wonderfully talented people of color and this industry, and I feel lucky to sort of be coming up at a time when there's more diversity in storytelling on TV, and I think that Looking had quite a bit to do with that. Yeah.
Like, are you engaging with more conversations with people? Like, are people more interested in talking to you about, like, this is what Latinos are, this is what we need to represent, this is what we, like, should be doing? Like, are people listening more to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's people are recognizing there's money in it, so I think that, you know, all of a sudden it becomes...
Like, if we're going to say, okay, fine, and if we're so hard to care about for our livelihood, then care about our money.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. You know? Yeah, it's crazy. But, you know, I guess it's sort of maybe opening the doors in some ways, but yeah. So weird.
So this is like a few years that we're skipping, but 7 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What? Holy shit.
Did you watch it?
Yes. You're brutal.
Yeah.
I was like, he's a brutal man.
Yeah.
As a writer and a storyteller, I find that I talk about this a lot on the show. I think my biggest lesson for the last few years has been to say, you know, I really care about big topics. I only ever want to talk about big topics. My dad's a fucking politician. Like, I am, like, it's just, like, ingrained, you know? But I want to also tell a story. You know, and I don't just want to be a kind of like documenting what happens. I want to get to the heart of it. And I think that 7 seconds, it's such an amazing job at that. Of being like, yes, these are all the topics, you know, but then this is a story. And these are people, and this is how we're going to bring this story forward to you. What did you learn the most in this process?
If I learned anything acting-wise, it might have been like about stamina. You know, there was 10 episodes. shot over the course of, 5 months, of a very dark story, and characters who are going through very dark journeys, and what it takes as an actor to navigate that in a healthy way is tricky.
How do you mean?
With 7 Seconds, it was such an important story, I think, that we were all telling, and I think that we all felt that, and I think that everyone felt really strongly that we were telling an important story, and that there was a great responsibility to it. And but that cast is incredible. Yeah. All of them. I love that. Like, it's such that's the one. I mean, that's that it made it so exciting to go to work every day.
What do you hope that people can get out of it?
I hope that people are able to experience some catharsis. More than anything, I think that it's a pretty charged time in this country. We're having to we have to really question how we're going to move forward as a society, and I think that the show can possibly provide a little bit of catharsis or for people.
Yeah, it's a really important time, I think, for people to be able to. I think people feel helpless, and I think that people also feel like they want to do something at the same time.
Yeah.
It's that feeling, and I think giving people a vehicle to be able to experience any possibility is so powerful. Absolutely. I mean, that's what I felt. I was like, yes, this injustice that I'm watching, that I'm actually watching it getting played out other than just like on the news.
Yeah.
It was something I could hold on to. Yeah, that it was something that I could hold on to.
Yeah. That's exciting.
We are the animals. We are animals.
We the animals.
We the animals. I was reading the Remezcla article a couple days ago. And what we're talking about just now, like talking about that these kids were just like from the street, and you got the most incredible kind of acting partners.
So We the Animals debuted at Sundance in January. I first met Jeremiah Zagar, the director, in the summer of 2015. He told me that both he and Justin Torres, the novelist, were interested in me, playing the role. I remember walking away from that meeting and walking to the Court Street books, the now defunct Court Street books.
So sad. They held a lot of good shit
that was a great bookstore. That was such a great bookstore.
Really good.
Yeah. And I picked up I hadn't read the novel. I prided myself on sort of knowing, contemporary Latino writers. And so I was like, how did I miss this novel? But I walked into Court Street Books and I picked up a copy and I went home and I read it in like one sitting. And I fell in love with it. And I have such reverence for writers. I feel like they're like rock stars.
It's a powerful thing. I've worked on now 2 adaptations, writing them.
Really?
And it really... Man, you learn so much about storytelling. Like, you just learn about what it takes to tell a story and deconstructing and the ways that it needs to be on a film.
Yeah. And We the Animals is very impressionistic in nature, the novel. It's like, and through the lens of this character who's unnamed in the novel, in the movie, the character's name is Jonah. And it's played by a wonderfully gifted young actor named Evan Rosado, who's like, the 3 of them, the 3 boys are just so phenomenal. But they found these kids like, on the street, essentially. Jeremiah was very clear in how he wanted to create the film. He's a documentarian. This is his first narrative film. Jeremiah was very intent on working with non-actors, and I think it was such a great choice because they have a rawness.
Yeah.
And there's sort of a sense of play and imagination that it is uncorrupted,
I think, like, also in those moments of storytelling, it's like when you watch, there's a difference in storytelling when you're watching a moment that is curated, that is like raw, but it's curated, and you're supposed to feel some way when you're just like actually watching the moment.
That's right.
Like the kind of
Whenever I see myself curating a moment, I want to hang myself, you know, so there's a lot to learn when your scene partner is like not, you know, he doesn't know how to hit a mark, or he doesn't know. They were learning as we went along, and you know, they gave them their own little mini boot camp, you know, on what to expect when we landed up in Utica. But
I love that people are reaching out to you for like missions. You know what I mean? That people are like, hey, I want to make it Chicano.
Yeah.
Like, let's engage in this conversation.
Yeah.
You're the right guy to engage in this conversation with. I think that's like, I want that.
Yeah.
You know, that's an awesome place to be. What's been the hardest part?
The hardest part, being so far from my family. You know, being.
You're very, very close to them.
Yeah. That's always. But you know, they've always been supportive, and they've always understood that I cared so much about this, about what I you know was doing as an artist, and that they have always been there for me. But yeah, being so far from them and not getting to experience those life things. I mean, I come from. I come from a part of the world where we've been in this, in this geographical location for many generations, and I'm the first one in my family to leave, to go to college, and now I'm on TV, so it's a nutty thing, like, you know. But I think that's sort of the bargain that my parents struck when they came to this country, is like that there was all these. I could never have become an actor in Mexico. I went home recently. I received this alumni award from my
incredible
school district, and so I went back and spoke at my high school to a bunch of students. I was in my auditorium where I did a bunch of plays and spoke to like a couple hundred kids, and who were like me, you know, all these years later, and like, but to see McAllen now and to get a sense of what kids are going through now, I was sort of excited by how progressive it's become for such a little town, like small town. I was sort of excited by the youth culture. It was like and there's something about, you know, I don't think there was anything like 7 Seconds when I was a kid.
Right.
You know, there was nothing like Looking when I was a kid. That's
amazing.
There's kids in my high school that are out now.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like that when I was a kid. It was people, you know, didn't navigate their sexuality like that, like, you know, the way that they are, and I was excited by that. You know, I think I was just excited for that kids are coming up at a time when there are shows like 7 Seconds and.
This is an amazing thing. I think I've had this thought before, but you know, when something really clicks, like that you're a part of something that you might have needed when you were younger. You know, like that's the work I want to fucking do, right? It's
sure.
like, I needed this.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to be it. I want to make it.
Right. And I mean, I knew that when I was a kid, when I was like reading about theater when I was a teenager, and I sort of like I saw what was happening in New York, and I was following what was, like, you know, I mean, Angels in America, you know, it was like, I remember reading that when I was a kid and being blown away by. You know, theater changed my life in that way because it exposed me to other worlds that I wouldn't have normally been exposed to. You know, yeah.
What is the big picture for you?
I've always sort of lived moment to moment, and I follow my gut as you know, as much as possible. A friend of mine gave me that advice years ago, that he always wanted to be the least experienced person in the room, and I love that way of thinking. I just want to continue to work with people who are more experienced than I am, so I can, you know.
I want to feel like a complete idiot everywhere I go.
Completely,
you know?
yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
just like extremely how I want to feel. Total idiot.
Right. And I want to, you know, and I've been lucky that I've gotten to work with, in the last couple of years, with people who really care about the stories they're telling and are invested in the bigger picture. You know, and I can say that about, you know, Atypical. I could say that about We the Animals. I can say that about, you know, all these El Chicano, that, you know, like all these projects that I have coming out that I feel like have a place in the zeitgeist, and then I think ultimately I'd like to produce my own work and sort of be a catalyst for work to happen in that respect.
Raúl, I could talk to you forever. I do want to say, I've had a couple people, you're the first person I approached to be on the show. Immediately I talked about the show, and I just knew that you had to be here. And it's been an amazing process. I don't know if you know this, but in the building of the show, I have had guests who have sat in that chair, and I have people talk to me just constant, you somehow always came up. As someone who they felt supported by in the community, as someone who saw them right away and cheered them on, as someone who just believed in their work and believed in their mission, whatever that might be. And that, I am moved by that constantly, that just keeps coming up about you, and that this is the role that you play in this essential community. And it's an honor to have you here and be able to show the world that you are exactly that.
Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
That's so moving. Thank you very much.